Good evening and welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, October 4th, and before us we have quite a few petitions, but joining us in the gallery live are Councillor Boschman, myself, Councillor Cruz, and Councillor Schultz, and tuning in via Zoom is Councillor Fleming, and in the audience is Councillor Squalia and Van Hazinga. So, welcome. If anyone, first of all, FATV is conducting the recording. If anyone in the audience wishes to speak on a matter appearing before the agenda, if you would kindly stand, come to the podium, state your name and address. You will be asked to speak only on the items appearing on the agenda, and you can do that for no more than 2 minutes. Please state the petition, order, ordinance, or resolution number that you refer to talk about. First on the agenda is 19921. Councillor Marissa Fleming, on behalf of Fisher Road residents Yazabeth Guzman, Lloyd Wenzel, and Christine Fagone, to request new signs and public lighting for Fisher Road as outlined in the enclosed petition. And in the enclosed petition, there are a few things, and I do understand that we have Yazabeth Guzman and Lloyd Wenzel here as well. So if each of you want to come up and stand at the podium or together, however you want to do this, or if there's things specifically that you want to talk about. The items that are before us are the arrow sign at the end of the road, no trucks allowed sign, new road barrier to replace the poor existing barrier, which the pictures indicate they are in poor condition, and a revision of the bridge railing height and fall protection to prevent falls and to help protect those in case something does happen. A speed limit sign, and then there's a question about the last item. It's referred to as a blind sign, but we weren't sure if that was blind driveway or if in fact there were blind residents there at the road that residents need to be made aware of, or that cars traveling on that road. Also, we have Sergeant Boudreau with us, who is our traffic officer. And Ms. Guzman, would you like to take the podium and talk about any of these?
Mrs. Fleming, she's not going to say anything before we speak.
Councillor Fleming, do you have anything to add or to say? I know that you were the councillor who brought this petition forward.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the raised hand signal there. But yeah, I'd like to speak on this. This is, if anybody's familiar with this area, it's a side road off a main road, which is used pretty much as a public way, so it's becoming a hazard. There's cars that are driving rather fast on this road. There are blind corners. There's it's a dark road. There are children on this road where the traffic, like I said, does go quickly. And, you know, you need to have that time if your child is near the street to be able to pull them off. It's also a street where if a car went too fast and lost control, they're going to end up in one of these residences' home. So, I mean, a little more lighting on that road would be great, because I do know people walk their dogs on that road. They are having a problem with the bridge at the end of the road, and I am actually going to let Ms. Guzman speak to that, because she's a little bit more proficient in that area than I am. Dumping is a big problem, but I think if there was more lighting, the dumping issue would fix itself. And there's also people pulling over doing drug deals and probably just doing their drugs and then taking off. So there's quite a few issues in that area. So respectfully, I hope we can resolve them.
All right, thank you. Ms. Guzman, you being a resident of Fisher Road, concerns, questions, what else can we do in any of those 6 items that you'd like to speak to?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having this meeting for the city of Fitchburg and the residents. Since we had the meeting in January 25th with DPW, some of the residents, including myself, brought up to DPW some of the issues that we have seen constantly in the area. Me being an owner of a bridge repair company, which I have done, you know, hundreds of bridges through the state of Massachusetts, I noticed right away that the bridge height it's not in compliance with what is as the Department of Transportation requires a bridge to be, at the height limitation. One of the things that I wanted to ask the board and you guys, the city councilors, is when was the last inspection on this bridge? Has District 3, who are from the Department of Transportation, who actually is the one that oversees all of the bridges in Massachusetts, if by any chance they have come to Fitchburg and look at this bridge in particular? I would like to ask you if it's possible for you guys to reach out to District 3 and see if either they have done a recent inspection or when was the last inspection done at this bridge. It is very concerning to me knowing that 18-wheelers actually drive by this bridge with the height that is less than 3 feet up. I'm very concerned that somebody during the winter or maybe having these huge 18-wheelers trucks, they might do a bad turn and fall down on the bridge. I mean, anything could happen when you don't have the correct height and the barriers on a bridge. Also on the side of the bridge, after the bridge, when you are right on Fisher Road, and I know that the chairperson, City Council Amy, has a picture. The Jersey barriers that are in that road are very deteriorated. They're in such a bad condition that anybody can actually, if a vehicle hits that, they're going down on the bridge. We're going a little bit down the hill, so if it's icy, those barriers will not stop a vehicle. That will be catastrophic for the person that hits them. So that's my main concern that I need to bring up to you, to please have somebody look at this bridge, and mainly the Jersey barriers. They're in really, really bad condition. I know that if somebody from DOT comes, they're gonna right away ask to be to replace them as soon as possible. Also, the street signing, we do not have any speed limit on that street. People fly out. It might be a 25 or maybe 20 speed limit sign there, but people drive 45, 50, they just fly out down the street. And also the dumping and has gotten better. All of the neighbors in the area, we always look out, if there is any dumping, we clean constantly. But if we have lighting, if we have lights in the area, it will definitely avoid this issue. That usually happens at night. The street is extremely dark. And also, as our city council, Mrs. Flemings mentioned, you kind of see transactions going on in that part of the bridge.
All right, I'm going to just ask you to pause because we have Sergeant Boudreau, who may have some comments on what he's found with these requests. Hi, Sergeant Boudreau.
Good evening, councilors. I actually participated in the original meeting that she's talking about. That was the Public Works, but I had a couple of petitions that night that I had put into the city, so I attended that meeting. A lot of these issues were brought up. I know the DPW commissioner was looking into fixing what they could right now, and then I know the bridge part of it itself was obviously going to be a funding source issue. I believe at that meeting, the DPW commissioner pretty much approved of all the smaller signage and things like that. I think it's just been them ordering. I did speak with Commissioner Erickson about a few of these things that we were going to have tonight, and I believe he said that the Jersey barriers they had ordered. I can't speak for him, but I believe he had said that, so I think they're looking at fixing the Jersey barrier issue. Obviously, the bridge would be a funding, and I think that's how that was passed at that meeting, was as far as fixing the bridge, it was going to be funding. And I know that he also brought up at that, they're not opposed to putting a light down in that corner, but it would take putting another telephone pole or two, so he was looking into the cost of that. So really, most of these issues are DPW issues as far as that. A couple of the small signage would could come forward from myself, from the police department, or DPW. And I think we all agreed on the small signage changes over there.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that that would be the arrow sign at the end of the road. That one could be done through coercion of DPW and through the traffic that you can take care of?
Yes, I think we were talking, if I remember right at that meeting, I think we talked about putting the chevron arrows
Okay.
on each corner, so as you were approaching it,
Yep.
especially where it is dark right now, those would illuminate off your headlights. So if it was, we could do something like that while waiting to get some lighting maybe in that corner.
Yeah.
Would help. And like I said, I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but I believe he said that they had ordered those Jersey barriers.
Okay. The no trucks allowed sign?
Yeah, that's another one that's, doesn't need, it's not it's not like a stop sign or a yield sign where it's an enforcement thing, so that could be just put up. It's basically a warning
Okay.
sign.
The speed limit sign, and what is the speed limit?
Speed limit over there, I'd have to go look. It should be thickly settled, so it would be 30 miles an hour. I do not believe that that's a posted speed limit road. I'd have to look that up. I don't have that on me, but I do not believe it would be, just because of the type of road it is.
Okay.
So those would be the orange and black speed signs that you'll see. They wouldn't be the white and black. That's for a posted speed limit road. It's more like a cautionary suggestion. The speed limit would be thickly settled, would be 30.
Okay. And the blind sign, have we determined if that is, Mr. Wenzel? Yeah.
That's supposed to be blind driveways, because there's Yaris's and mine. We come up into the road, and with trees on both sides, we have to kind of stick our nose out, because if you don't see them and they're flying by, you don't have time to stop.
Okay,
You have to stop.
Is that through DPW or police, where it's actually a blind driveway?
Sir, if you want to send me an email with your information, I can contact you and come up and take a look. I don't know if it would be if it's a vegetation thing that needs to be trimmed, if that's why you have a blind spot, or if we need the sign for the
3-foot oak tree.
Yeah.
Mr. Wenzel, what is your address, if you don't mind? 176 Fisher. Okay.
If you can give me your card afterwards, I'll do that.
All right. Councillor Boschman. Councillor Fleming, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I do remember from the meeting in January that many of these things were approved, so I was a little confused why they were back on the agenda for the public safety. Can somebody tell me why? Because I do know the signs were approved, but they hadn't been placed. Did it also have to come through this committee to be placed?
I don't know. I myself was a little confused when I saw all these items that are under the direct purview of either the enforcement of the police department or directly from the DPW, where we as a committee we're not the funding source. We don't have the funds. So, I mean, I'm happy to hear any of these concerns about public safety. The bridge is the most concerning part to me, or to how to keep people safely on the section of that bridge.
And the Jersey areas on Fisher Road
Right.
as well.
I
Yeah.
do have the minutes from the Public Works Committee meeting, if you'd like me to read them.
If you have them, Sam, I would appreciate that.
It was signage and New Jersey barriers approved, lighting and bridge repairs approved pending funding, which will need to be sourced outside of DPW's annual budget. This will be either through a grant program or other sources of funding.
Thank you very much for that. So, I think everything that's requested is a yes. And again, it comes down to timing and funding, like everything else.
Now, the sign on the streets, is that something very costly that I don't understand why at least that part hasn't been done. I understand the bridge portion and the Jersey barriers, that might have to need more approval and maybe get an inspector there. But the signs, is there?
I have the answer for that. So it's a manpower and a staffing issue.
Okay.
That's not an excuse. That's just where we are in reality of the personnel at the DPW. I think we have one gentleman that maybe once every 10 days or 2 weeks is allotted to work on signs, that they literally have to either order or make signs. So it's a manpower shortage of how to get the signs, when they come in, and then getting the people up there to install them. But, yep, I hear they're on their way. Sergeant Boudreau?
Counsel, I may have another answer for that. I agree with just what you said. They do have a staffing issue over there. I deal with them a lot because we put in for signs all the time for different signage. I will say this, that through the summertime, the DPW's sign budget was depleted. We had some other signs that they were waiting to put up. Obviously, that got refunded with the new budget in July, so that may have something to do with this. Signs are reasonably cheap when you think of the whole budget of the city, but their sign line item was depleted, and they had to wait till the new fiscal year, so that may have played into that also. Again, I don't want to talk for the DPW, but we talk a lot on these issues, so.
All right. Councilor Boschman?
I just want to verify the thing I'm going to tell you on the Jersey barriers. They have been ordered because I talked to Nick Erickson. They got to the commissioner today, and he talked about those. As I was asking him questions about the lights, but I want to make one thing straight to the people of Fisher Row. Just because we put a light up there, if you think that's going to deter people from dumping, it's not going to happen. Because I got the same problem. They got all kinds of street lights at the end of Cleghorn Street and Federal Street, and they're dumping constantly down there. They're dumping constantly at the Fifth Turnpike Road down there, and they got lights and they lit up, and we even got people, they get cameras, and they still dump. So if you think that the lights are going to solve everything, it's not going to solve everything. And if you think it's going to deter drug dealing, well, that's not going to deter drug dealing. It might even help drug dealers because they'll be able to see what they're doing. And the other thing I want to say is this, on the signs, I talked to the commissioner. He's got a limited stash of money, and signs cost money, and some signs cost a lot more money than other signs. So he says he's only got so much money for signs, and that's what he told me today. He says he's going to talk about that to the full council because his budget's doesn't have a lot of money for signs, and everybody wants signs and
Right, so
out of money.
Knowing that, I think that we owe it to our residents that when we look over the budget, that we say, hey, knowing that we've depleted that budget as a line item, let's either suggest, you know what I mean, that more money gets allocated for that because it's a sign. You know what I mean? Like this shouldn't be the stumbling block to provide residents, a safe way to enter and egress from their property. It shouldn't be, it should be a deterrent, you know what I mean, to let everybody know that, hey, we've got concerned residents here, so I don't want you to lose faith in the fact that we're not going to take care of you. We're stuck just like every other department and every other person is, but your request is not so egregious that we can't accomplish it. We will accomplish it. We've heard that the Jersey barriers are on order. What that means nowadays, I don't know. But, the bridge and the inspection of the bridge out of my purview for this committee, but there's no reason why we can't pass that on to Commissioner Erickson to say, hey, little red flag here that, may be a concern about this bridge, but the other stuff we can certainly address and take care of.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I don't know who requested this meeting with the safety committee, but I appreciate whoever did it because this is a safety matter.
Right, that's right. That's your Councilor Marissa Fleming bringing it forth in petition form and making us aware that there were concerned residents that had these issues. So we want to take care of the residents of Fitchburg, and your request is within reason. So thank you for taking the time and speaking to us about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So do I have a motion to approve as requested 19921?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Speaking on the matter? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, 19922, Tom Sarowski Executive Director of Community Development and Planning, and Amy LeBlanc, Senior Project Manager, to amend Chapter 169-24 entitled Parking Prohibited at All Times relating to Boulder Drive as in the enclosed order. That's a Chapter 169 proposed change. So, good evening. Will this be your last city meeting?
My penultimate, my last one will be right after this, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Hold on, Tom, for a minute. When we wait to see
All right, so here we are with the big petition to get it done.
Correct. And so this is, what's in front of the committee is what has been in effect with the experimental regulations that were originally 90 days and were just extended another 30 days further. A slightly amended version of this was then sent to the full council for its first reading tonight. But I know Sergeant Boudreau's been in discussion with Nick Erickson, Commissioner Erickson, about possible tweaks along the way, and I'll certainly defer to the Sergeant in that regard. I will note that these changes were approved unanimously by the Public Works Committee in their meeting, I believe, in August. But happy to take any questions you might have. And I don't know if you have any particular items to address, Sergeant.
Sergeant Boudreau, anything to add or comment on?
No, I know I talked with Commissioner Erickson and the Chief Martineau about this. This was a study that was done by Ty and Bond. It was a traffic engineering study that they did. We're not going to step on their toes. I think this should be implemented. After it is, we can always look at any hiccups if we have intersections or something like that, and we could take them, one at a time. But they're traffic engineers. I'm not an engineer, so I would defer to that engineering study, and I think we should pass this.
Any, Councilor Boschman?
I have some things about, there's a part of this I don't like on what they did for design, especially down on lower Boulder Drive, and you're coming up heading west on Main Street, and you can take the cutoff on the Boulder Drive. Now, I'm told prior that the previous commissioner didn't want to sign off on it. I'm told that, in my opinion, as a driver, forget about our city council, the design down there is the worst I ever seen in my life. And I don't understand how it ever passed. In my opinion, as a driver, I'm not an engineer either, but it's terrible. It's a terrible design, in all honesty. How can we justify and tell the people of Fitchburg we're trying to go green, and you're in that left lane heading west, and if you want to get onto Boulder Drive, you're stopping traffic behind you with a light right there? How can we justify that? And how can you justify saying north on Main Street, you can take a right on a red, and get into your left-hand lane, and everybody gets in that left-hand lane to go onto Laurel Street or Water Street, and then the line comes all the way down to the island, and you can't move.
Right. I think, Councilor Boschman, we've talked about this before, that maybe it's not the design. Maybe a change needs to be done to the traffic signaling so that it allows for the people who are coming, because I happen to like that little shortcut. I can sneak right down on Boulder Drive, and maybe it's a timing of the light, or maybe there needs to be something with people coming out alongside the side of CVS, because they want to cut over and go left over the bridge. So maybe it's a timing of the lights versus a design. So what's before us is, the parking prohibited at all times.
I understand that, madam, but we want to extend it. And my argument is this: it's not the timing of the lights, because since I've been on this council, I've been complaining about North Street and Main Street since I started on day one. And if you remember, I put a petition in so Mr. Monterey in the gas station wouldn't take a left turn going across 4 lanes of traffic, and I get voted down because you had the right lane and it was blocking traffic. I stand by my conclusions that whoever the design, in my personal opinion, as a driver in the city of Fitchburg, Lower Boulder Drive, to me, is a chaos, and it's nothing but an accident ready to happen. You're holding up traffic, and there's no need of it. Not when everybody wants to go green. Not when you tell me you want green and you want traffic moving, and then you stop them at a light, and then you get a light. You can't do it.
So, respectfully, Councilor, I think the intersection there at Blossom, Cushing, and Main was no walk in the park before Main and Boulder was converted to two-way traffic. You had a lot of really unsafe through movements happening from Cushing onto Blossom. It was already a high crash intersection, and closing Cushing Street was one element to help make that intersection safer. I think the other thing that is worth considering, to the sergeant's point, we're still in the very early stages of this process, and driver behavior is still in a bit of a state of flux. I would hope that over time folks begin to understand the capacity that Boulder Drive can take on as a bypass, and what that might do to actually change some of the sort of cascading interactions at that intersection is not insignificant. So if you are taking the right-hand turn off the Water Street Bridge to loop around onto Boulder Drive, you're freeing up some queuing capacity on the Main Street, on the Water Street Bridge heading northbound. By freeing up some of that queuing capacity, you could allow for further tweaks in the signaling further on that might allow traffic to flow through a bit smoother. Similarly, I think if you're on Blossom Street, which, by the way, Blossom Street going south at that hill around 4 to 5 p.m. has always been an issue. This, I will not dispute, didn't make it any better, but it's always been an issue at that hour. Folks could conceivably take a right-hand turn and head up Main Street to Putnam, southbound, to head to Point South, as opposed to taking the Water Street Bridge or even heading to Moran Square. I guess it depends on where folks are going, but I think those are just a few of the ways where drivers could and should tweak behavior over time, but it might take more than the 3 months that we've been in operation so far. I certainly agree it's not perfect at that intersection in particular, but I think it's something that we've just got to monitor and tweak as time passes and driver behavior might shift.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
No, we've got Councillor Schultz that wants to speak first.
But I haven't yielded the chair yet for a minute, and he was answering my question, and I didn't even talk about Blossom Street because I told the commissioner I wouldn't talk about Blossom Street because if the Sergeant Buja was going to change the design up there, they're going to move traffic to the left on Blossom Street so cars can go around to the right of it, but not take away the parking spaces. So I kept my word to the commissioner. I said I wouldn't say a word.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is I'm talking about North Street and Boulder Drive, where you can take a left. Now, I grant you, Tom, you're right. But let me also point out, since you're not going to be here in 3 years from now, when they do that Water Street Bridge, and they put 3 lanes of traffic in there, there's going to be a heck of a lot more traffic going over that bridge than what you think of. Because now, you won't have to wait. Now you'll be able to go over the bridge, and everybody will be able to get to the far right, to go over the bridge, take a right going down to Lunenburg Street, and the people coming up from Main Street to take a left are going to have to wait, and the people behind them are going to be stopped. There's going to be a heck of a lot more traffic that you think there is over that Water Street Bridge once it goes to 3 lanes on one side, down the Day Street side, that wide opening there. We made it 3 lanes for that reason, because the backup was too much, and people couldn't get onto Summer Street going over that bridge.
So we made it 3 lanes, or in partnership with MassDOT, because the easternmost lane, I guess you call it, is intended to be right turn only, so vehicles could bypass Main Street headed westbound and could take that Boulder Drive bypass. And that would, in effect, also, if driver behavior shifts as we'd like to see it, would reduce the need for vehicles to take a left-hand turn on Main Street if you're just going through traffic. And we know that 40% of the traffic on Main Street headed westbound is just through traffic. So we're trying to provide an alternate avenue, and that could theoretically reduce queuing capacity, but you're right. I think until the bridge is developed and you can monitor existing conditions, it's all a bit theoretical at this point.
I'll yield the chair now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I haven't received any complaints about the new Main Street Boulder Drive conversion. And as a driver, I like all the options. I like taking that left down Boulder Drive. And I'm still discovering new ways to get to places after all the years of having the one-way Boulder Drive. It's just, I think Sergeant Boudreau will be able to work out the issues as we go along. So I'm in favor of continuing for another 30 days and hoping that everybody discovers the options that you now have. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I personally come down Summer Street, Main Street. It is a little clogged there, I admit, but I've already changed to come down Water and take the little loop down Boulder. And I think driver behavior will change as we kind of learn and adapt and we change our lights. But regardless, the petition before us is to change some no parking prohibited. We're getting into a long discussion about the design, and that's been going on for a long time now.
Years.
So that's what I'm focused on. I'm not going to chomp at the bit here at the 11th hour. The petition is for parking, and I'm going to make a motion that we accept.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and second to accept the petition as stated. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? One in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next before us, petition 20122 and 20322. Residents of Bella Vista condos located at 875 John Fitch Highway to request support for our neighborhood improvement petition and also to request, second of that. So we have Deb Dion, a resident. Deb, if you'd like to come to the podium and speak on behalf of the residents on why it was important to bring these petitions forward. And can I just go over the list of what the request was?
If you'd like to do that, that'd be fine. Thank you.
So there were several requests. Install a legitimate crosswalk at 855, 875 John Fitch Highway and enforce the 35 mile an hour speed limit on the road. Number 2, to enforce Chapter 132, the Peace and Good Order, Article 5, which is noise control. 3, update the rules and regulations for use of public parks and playgrounds. 4, require a permit and minimal fee to use the softball field. 5, obtain funding to implement police detail at Coolidge Park from April 1st to October 31st, and install a locking gate at the Townsend Street entrance to Coolidge Park and lock it between the hours of dusk and 8 a.m.
Thank you, Councilor Green. I will reintroduce myself to you. My name is Debbie Dion, and I am an owner and a resident of a condominium located at 875 John Fitch Highway, which is the Bella Vista 1 condominiums. We are working together with the Bella Vista 2 condominiums, which are located at 855 John Fitch Highway. And this all came about basically because of the first thing on the list on the petition is the crosswalk situation. So I think as a condominium community, and we addressed a petition through Councilor Fleming, who has been very gracious with her time, with her effort, with her suggestions, and we are very thankful to her for what she has done for us. We did not come before you as a condominium association. The two buildings are separate condominium associations, but we joined together. As you can see, do you have the petitions that we signed? Yes. We have numerous residents who, most of them are also owners in those two buildings, who have signed on to what we're trying to accomplish. And we did it as a group of concerned citizens, neighborly neighbors, however you'd like to call us. So the first one deals with a legitimate crosswalk, and that is in quotation marks, because when we first addressed the crosswalk situation, which is located between the two buildings and crosses directly over to Coolidge Park, which, as you all know, is a gem in the city of Fitchburg. We're so lucky to be the neighbors of Coolidge Park, and we find that without a crosswalk, you are prohibiting the residents of 78 condominium units from safely crossing John Fitch Highway to access all the wonderful things available at Coolidge Park. So legitimate crosswalk, I am quoting a DPW commissioner, and I think since this started, we've changed commissioners, and I believe they're both named Nicholas, if I'm correct. So I may be confusing one for the other, but one of them said that we could not have a crosswalk there because it was not legitimate. It did not meet ADA requirements. Okay, we are, educated adults. We understand that it's not ADA compliant, but our main request is could you please do anything and everything and beyond anything and everything to make that crosswalk area ADA compliant? It's literally a matter of life and death trying to cross that street. Many of the residents in the two buildings will no longer cross the street as a pedestrian. They will get in their car and drive across the street to Coolidge Park, which I think is quite silly, but I myself do that. Whatever you need to do to make that legitimate, we would be very delighted for your help. We met as a small group with Councilor Fleming. I'm going to say maybe anywhere from 8 to 12 people, depending upon which meeting it was, because she's been very gracious with her time and obviously has come to the Bella Vista more than once. We're working together, representatives from both groups, but I'm the only one here tonight because I think.
Because you're Deb Dion.
Yeah, because our support, the support is evident to you, as you can see on those petitions that you have signed. So you're probably saying, okay, Deb Dion, what have you done to help yourself before you have appeared to us tonight? Well, I and many of my neighbors have done a lot of legwork. Whoever it might have been, has gone to DPW, said, please paint the crosswalk. We have gone to the Fitchburg Police Department. I was there in person about a year ago after there was outrageous noise morning, afternoon, and well after dark at Coolidge Park. That's why we wanted help with the noise ordinance. And I will publicly state, and happily do so, that our Fitchburg Street Hockey League neighbors are wonderful. We have had some issues with adults playing softball at the Dick Charlton Field, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if they're residents of the city of Fitchburg, which is why we included, can you go through the park department? Can you get permission to use these fields? Can we know who's playing there? I know that one of the police officers who responded to a noise request said, we don't even know who these people are. They don't have to sign up. We don't know whose rubbish we're picking up on Monday mornings after they've been there. That's a health hazard. I delivered a copy of the petition to Steve Curry at the Board of Health. I have talked with Sergeant Boudreau on the phone. I think this is the first time we're face to face.
Yes, ma'am.
But you were, nice enough or responsible enough or took your job seriously enough to say, you know what, if they think there's a problem with pedestrians crossing John Fitch Highway, then I'm going to at least look into it and see what these folks have to say. We went right down the line like, oh, can't you lock the gates there? I mean, there's traffic there at, the wee hours of the morning.
Can we take these one at a time so we can address that where we do have Sergeant Boudreaux here.
Whatever works for you folks, I would actually feel more comfortable answering any questions you have rather than trying to tell you publicly what you've already read on those petitions that we gave to you.
Right. I would like to hear from Sergeant Boudreaux on, because there's some of it that is extremely good news.
Okay.
You know, moving in the right direction, so to speak. So on the legitimate crosswalk,
So the crosswalk, I've gotten calls for quite a few years down there. We have multiple crosswalks in the city that were painted years ago that do not fall under ADA compliance in the current times, and that being one of them. So when the DPW says they can't paint it, they can't right now. We have to make it ADA compliant. I believe that this has already gone in front of Public Works, and I think this is...
It's already been approved. It's
Yeah,
been
another approved with funding. I would add that where it's a busy roadway, and I believe this with all the roadways in the city, with the amount of traffic down there and that being what they call a mid-block crosswalk where it's not at an intersection, that if we are looking for funding, that we try to add RFBs there, that's the flashing crosswalk signs. Again, those are cost issues. We can't put them everywhere. But if we find funding for this, I think that's a place where we should be looking into putting those along with the crosswalk.
and what did you call it again? A
They're
what?
called an RFB. It's the flashing crosswalk signs,
Rapid
so they light up.
rectangular,
They light up.
rectangular flashing.
No, you press the
Okay.
button, they light up.
All right, well, because in talking with Commissioner Erickson, that, yes, it was approved pending funding, and he is reaching out to the CDBG grant monies to take care of that. So there will be something in place, probably not this year, but, you know, as we roll hopefully into spring, you know, where we can get it done for you, but we are going to recognize it as a legitimate crosswalk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to thank you, Sergeant Boudreaux. You're probably responsible for the little sign that says your speed, and then it flashes. I think those have been posted maybe for 7 to 10 days.
Yes,
Two new ones on John Fitch Highway, so we thank you for that.
those are a portable speed signs.
Yes.
That we bought with a grant last year, and I have 4 of them. They're battery operated, so I can move them around the city. I put those up, I think it was last Thursday, so I'll be doing probably a 12 to 14 day study down there. And depending on my time, they may stay there for a little longer. Right now, you're not going to see them light up because they're in a stealth mode, and that gives us true speed. So that, because what happens a lot of times when I do these studies is when I give results back, people will say, well, they saw the sign, so they slowed down. These new signs are nice compared to the trailers that we had. We put them in stealth mode. They're going to give me true speed for 6 days, and then I'll do another study for another 6 days with it lighting up, and we can get a better idea of what the actual speeds are. We're going to have a high traffic count, obviously, down there because it's a very busy road. Depending on that and how much speeding there is, it gives us a lot of information back. Sometimes it gives us that we can pinpoint certain times of the day, depending on the information I get back. Sometimes if we have so much traffic volume, we may not be able to do that, to do like directed patrols. But obviously, we do speed enforcement when time permits in areas like that because it's been a speeding problem for years. I did a study farther up John Fitch Highway earlier this year, so that is going on right now, and that's to address the speed issue that you brought up.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your efforts. And like I said, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, whether they be tonight or...
We need to get through, so the number 2, the enforce Chapter 132, which is the peace and good order, so that there is a noise ordinance in place, and it is important that when you are disturbed from your daily life or you're enjoying your facilities there at John Fitch, which always look tremendous, by the way, that the residents feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone and make the request that there is unruly, too much noise, so that they can respond, because the police officers do respond, but they're not mind readers. People have to call, And it's usually important that more than one person make the call if it's disruptive to your whole neighborhood there.
Yes, we've made that known throughout
Okay.
the condominium community, that
there
it
are-
can't be just one person that calls.
Right, and there are, the rules and regulations of the park use have been updated.
Yes.
There is a permit and fee already required for those to use the softball field, and that police detail work, that's an enforcement, that's a police department enforcement concern, that's not anything that the Public Safety Committee can, fund or say, yes, you have to do. And then there's no personnel and funding to be able to provide, locking a gate, be able to lock the gate and then unlock the gate at the times requested. It's just a matter of manpower and funding. We don't have the availability to do that, but I do have Councilor Cruz and Councilor Schultz that may have questions for you. So Councilor Cruz and Fleming, thank you.
I guess my initial question is whether or not, if you know the people using the field are organized leagues that take in fees to participate in, or if it's just some people who go down there and play. Is it young people?
That's what we don't know.
Okay.
But we do know that they are very loud, and we do know that there's a lot of rubbish that our tax dollar is probably paying to clean up on Monday mornings. But I'm also very happy to tell you that it has not been a huge problem this summer. So I don't know if these softball players have gone elsewhere,
She can't see you.
but it hasn't been a problem. But at the time that we initiated this, it was a huge problem.
Okay.
And the police department have been very good about responding and helping us out.
I think Councilor Fleming has something to say, so I'm going to yield to her, but if I could have it back, I'd appreciate that, Madam Chair.
Okay, yes, Councilor Fleming.
Yes, I did speak to the Parks Department before Nate left us. He did say that he believes most of the problem are coming from the people who are not reserving the field. They're just the people that see the fields empty, they come in, they walk, and there seems to be some consensus that they might have those radars on their phone. So when a call is made to the police department of noise complaint, that by the time the police get there, the noise has been lowered, and as soon as the police are gone, radios and whatnot go back up. So it's not the people that are paying their fee to use the field. It's the ones who are not paying to use the field that are just using it on a whim because it's open. So I yield the floor back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cruz, was there anything else that you'd like to continue with?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so we had a process like this in my ward on Battelle Street. We went through a couple of things, the community development block grants that Sergeant Boudreau mentioned, which will come up next January. It'll be opened up again. And if you'd like, there's something else that we used as well called a Shared Streets and Spaces grant that could be used to purchase the beacons. So if we'd like, we can sit down maybe with Councilor Fleming. My parents are actually on this petition. They're your neighbors.
Your parents have been very helpful in all of this. Your dad has done a lot of research. Thank you to
They usually are. He likes to call my phone too and talk about it and put a bug in my ear as well. But if the three of us, we all wanted to sit down. It's a pretty simple process, and I want to commend you on your advocacy, because that's what it really takes to get these grants sometimes. It takes this sort of combined effort from counselors, from residents, letters that we can send, anything of that nature. It really helps the grant process and maybe speeding this along. So maybe the three of us could sit down after and talk about what that process is like.
That'd be fine. Thank you so much for your support.
You're very welcome. I yield the floor.
Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Deb, about the locking gate on Townsend Street. I don't know how effective that would be, because you have access to that park in a lot of different places. There's a lot of parking elsewhere as well. So I don't know if that would be something we should pursue, or how do you feel about that? 'Cause it sounds like this process has been going on for some time.
I can tell you where that came from. We did a lot of brainstorming. A lot of people did a lot of brainstorming. And that idea came from, we know that Cogsall Park gets locked at night. And we said, well, why can't we lock Coolidge Park at night? That's the only entrance. I don't know if that's still Pearl Street over there by Townsend Street. I don't know the name of the street, but the vehicular traffic.
It is, yes.
That's the only entrance. I know they can drive up into the parking lot between Street Hockey and the Wallace Civic Center and can probably drive right down over the banking. But there are a lot of cars across the street at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning inside the park that closes at dusk. And, well, who knows what's going on over there? But something's going on over there. So that's where that came from. If Cogswell Park can get locked, then why can't Coolidge Park get locked? And you're right, there's access pretty much
there's so much
360.
access around.
You're absolutely right.
Right,
But
I
it's
have,
like,
an, I have an answer for that. The reason that Cogswell gets locked is
Yes.
because there's an organization called the Friends of Cogswell.
Yes,
and
and
they
they do
have
it.
a couple of people that go down at dusk and at dawn and close and open the gate. So that's one of the reasons why that one gets done and Coolidge doesn't, because there's no funding or there's no person or body held responsible to do that.
Councilor Fleming actually told us that. But it's like, you know what, we did all this brainstorming. You don't want to tell one person, no, I'm not putting your thing on the list. No, your ideas were good, you know. So we kind of tried to condense it as much as possible. But I think if you took a vote between the two buildings, I think the number one thing is they want the crosswalk problem solved.
They're getting the crosswalk.
And the speed limit, enforced. So,
Okay.
thank you to Sergeant Boudreau. Thank you to all
Counselor,
of you for
wait,
your
we've
time.
One more question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, Councilor
Any
Schultz.
question? Do some of the people, do they think that they should, this whole idea of the noise, what do they think, what do they think the solution is to that? As far as, some people, that call me, they don't want to be known.
Yeah.
So are they going to be able to call the police and say, there's a problem going, or is it going to fall on just one or two people?
Well, there are a lot of people who are, I don't want to say afraid, but uncomfortable to make those phone calls. I am not one of those people.
Yeah.
And there are several people in the building who are also not afraid to do that. I don't know the solution. The police come, and like Councilor Fleming said, the noise level drops. The police talk to them, off the police go, and up the noise level comes.
As Councilor Green made the point earlier that, sometimes it takes more than one person to call to get a response. So.
We're working on that. We're working on that. But we do have a nice core group representing both buildings who would be more than happy to answer any further questions or work with you. We're willing to do our share of the work. We just don't know what we need to do. So thank you to Councilor Fleming for making this possible. And we got a lot of people who aren't afraid to speak up, whether it be at DPW, at the police department, at the Parks and Rec department, to their counselors, whatever. So thank you very much.
I yield the floor. Thank you, Councilor Green.
Thank you. Councilor Boschman.
I don't have a question for you, but I do have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
You're Mrs. Dion, right?
We say Dion. A lot of people say Dion. My father told me my last name was Dion. So that's my last name.
Are you originally from Ward 2, Cleghorn on Daniel Heights or Daniel Street?
I am not, but I grew up in Fitchburg.
Oh, okay.
I went to school, K-12 in Fitchburg, went to Fitchburg State College, and I'm 10 years into my retirement after teaching 34 years in the Fitchburg Public Schools.
Because there was a lady by the name of Dion that lived on Daniel Heights, and I was going to say I haven't seen you in a long time.
No, not
right.
related, but thank you. But no, I've been around. I've been in Fitchburg longer than probably you folks have been alive.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sergeant Boudreau, is there anything else that needs to be added or said?
No, I think we probably covered, anything that the police department can do, other than obviously calling, when it's happening,
Yes.
because we can't solve it after. When I was putting the speed signs up the other day, I spoke to 5 or 6 of the residents that were outside there, and I told they had some issues even in your own parking lot that they said they thought there were people there. So I say, call dispatch anytime you think something isn't right, and an officer will respond.
Yeah, we've had, like I said, very good luck with the police backing us up. So thank you for that.
All right. Do I have a motion on the petition?
Make a motion, we accept.
crosswalk, correct? Crosswalk?
Yes, the only thing that we are approving and moving forward on is the crosswalk and the enforcement of the 35 mile an hour after the study is done. I have a motion and second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to sign in and be seated. Thank you.
Next before us, 22922, to amend Section 169.25 of the City Code, parking prohibited certain hours on Pleasant Street of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., changing to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. to reflect the changes in the school schedule. Sergeant Boudreau.
Yeah, so obviously this came up with the changes that the school department made with the different schools, and they changed the hours over there. The original signs matched the hours that the school used to be open and closing. Basically, this was to change them to the new hours of the school. While we were waiting for this, because of the change of the hours of the school, I did a report for that, and under the chief's authority, we did a temporary change of that signage until the council could look at this and take a vote. So that signage has been changed temporarily under the chief's authority for public safety because of the school children coming in at the different times. So the signs have been changed temporarily until this body votes on it.
All right, and I see that we have Councilor Van Hazinga in front of us, so good evening.
Oh, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, just want to echo what the traffic sergeant says. I can tell you also, not just as the ward councilor here, but also as a parent of a Longstreet student who does drop off in the morning. It is very difficult when there are cars parked on the street. It's even worse in the winter where there's snowbanks, and it's even worse when there's snowbanks and it's trash day.
Lord.
So drop-off starts at 7:45. Cars queue a little before then, but there's even till 8. There's sometimes cars there, even after people ignore the restriction. It does get dangerous with people swerving around cars, but kids walking everywhere. It needs to be a safe location with the school, and hopefully these signs can.
And have you noticed with the involvement that you have, not only as counselor, but as a parent and a resident, have you noticed any change, or are we moving in the right direction with changing the signs from 7 to 5?
It would be changed from 8 to 7 in the morning for the start. Even before, when school drop-off didn't start till 8 o'clock exactly, it was a little tight. There were often still cars on the street. The start at 7 o'clock will give it a little more time to make sure cars are off the street.
Because there's temporary signs up there now, right, from 7, that's parking now from 7 to 5 versus 8 to 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that additional time to make sure that cars are off the street will help. Before, where drop-off started at 8 and the parking restriction also started at 8, it was tight because there were often still cars there parked on the street while parents were queuing to drop off their children. So having a bit of a window where the parking restriction starts at 7, drop-off starts at 7:45, works a lot better.
Okay. All right. Sergeant Boudreau, anything more to add to that?
No, this actually started with a request from the school, so that's how this started.
Okay. Any Councilor Boschman?
Just one question, quick question. And when school's all done, people can park over there, right? Am I correct on that?
Yes, so this would actually, since the school day is shifting up a bit, move the end of the restriction from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So it's the same number of hours. It's just shifted forward a little bit. And it goes past the end of the school day a little bit because there are afternoon programs that continue on. And the concerns of the traffic sergeant was to make sure that though when the 21st Century program or other after-school programs let out, that there was still a safe pickup area.
No, my question is, when school gets out at the end of May, the residents can go back to their parking on the street. That's my question, when school's dismissed for the summer.
Counselor, when school is not in session, we do not enforce the no parking over there.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
That was something that we spoke with the majority of the residents back when we did this original petition. It wasn't, it would be a very tough avenue to put that in writing, that we're only going to do it from a certain date. The school year changes if we have snow days and things like that. So that's why we did it with this council for an ordinance for the whole year, but we do not enforce that when school's not in session.
Okay, that's all. That's all.
I will say in my conversations with the residents on Pritchard Street and my observations and conversations with the department, the resource officer, they exhibit a lot of restraint in enforcing this ordinance. It's a lot of knocking on doors in the morning saying, hey, you got to move your car. They're not trying to penalize the residents who are living there, but they do realize that there have to be the regulations in place to make it a safe place. And like the sergeant said, they don't enforce it when they don't need to, and they try to do everything they can to help the residents and make it just work for everybody.
Thank you for bringing that up as well. That's
I'll
important
make
for
a
people.
motion, we accept it.
Second?
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, 23122, I was going to say, you might as well still stand. Install rapid flash beacons at the crosswalk on Main and Wallace Ave to preserve safe pedestrian access between the library and institution, including the Senior Center, YMCA, Wallace Towers, and Guangzhou Middle School. I don't know if you'd like to speak on that, or if we want to hear from Sergeant Boudreau.
We have a situation where we have the library on one side of Main Street, and we have a whole lot of institutions, and also the bus stop for the library across the street. And before that, we had some nice bright signs and, facing on both sides of the street, highlighting the crosswalk and everything, but now it's a little more difficult with the two-way travel. And there are some signs going the other way that have been installed, but seeing how this is a passageway that's used by many different people of different physical abilities and ages, from kids all the way to the elderly, it would be very prudent to make sure it's a safe crossing, because it's something that's going to get used a lot. So my request would be to approve a petition to install some RFB beacons there. I do recognize that this does take funding, so it's going to take some time to get that money together and find a source for that. And it also has to work with the planned renovations of the library. So timing, I'm sure, will be at some point in the future. But I'm hoping that if we can approve this petition, we can get that on the list to be done and figure it out as we move forward.
Sergeant Boudreau, do you have anything that you can provide for us?
Again, kind of like what we talked about with the ones on John Fitch. I'm for putting those anywhere that we can afford to put them, where they're needed. I would say that this will be a good spot for that, because you do have the library and obviously a lot of foot traffic there. We have the ones out in front of us on City Hall here, so I would be for that. It always comes down to funding.
And are those signs able, I know one on each side of the street, but do we need a total of 4 signs, or do they shine through for flashing? Like, because we've got traffic now, not only vehicle traffic, but pedestrian traffic as well.
Right, it would be one facing each way, because now we're two-way traffic.
Okay.
So, one would be facing coming up Main Street, and one would be facing going the other way.
But on both sides of the street?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Councillor Schultz?
Yeah, I agree with both Sergeant Boudreau and Councilor Van Hazen, right? Crosswalk. And the drivers are still getting used to seeing people cross at that crosswalk. So I think it would be an excellent idea to put it there. And yeah, John Fitch, and hopefully we can get the funding for both of them, because they're sorely needed in both locations. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Boschman?
Put down on the records that there's 2 beacons that we get for up there on Rosedale Street or Electric Avenue, and we're not using. Take those 2 that I get for the city from Cumberland Farms and use them down there, and we'll save money. So that's my suggestion. Really, it's ours, and they haven't used them, they haven't put them up. So why not use them? We got them.
Councillor Boudreau, do you know anything about that? Maybe I'll make a phone call to Commissioner Erickson about that?
We have spoke a little bit about that. The DPW's looking to see if they have those. We're not sure if those were used at another project at some point, because I know the funding was there, but they never were put up in that intersection.
Right, they weren't.
I haven't had a chance. The company that I bought my portable signs from are the same ones that the DPW uses to buy their signs. So I have a contact down there. I was going to reach out to him to see if we ever did purchase those, and if they were shipped to us. So I was going to try to do that for the the commissioner. I just haven't had a chance this week. So we're not sure if we have those signs or not.
Okay. Yikes. All right.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion more before us? Seeing none, that is approved to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, 24322, City Councilor Bernie Schultz and Judy Perla of 236 Walton Street to install a yield sign on pole 1615 facing out on Monroe Street at the intersection of Fairbanks and Monroe Streets to improve traffic safety when motorists depart from South Street Elementary School. Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, that's been amended. This was brought up at the Public Works Committee meeting, and so we're looking at, if we do a yield sign at some point, it would be on Fairbanks Street, right, Sergeant Boudreau?
So the actual yield sign, first of all, would need an engineering study to do a yield sign or a stop sign. But because Monroe Street is a continuous street, the yield sign would have to go onto Fairbanks Street, which wouldn't really solve the issue that was going on over there. So we met with the school department, Councilor Schultz, DPW superintendent, and we came up with a couple ideas over there. Part of it was vegetation control. The corner was very overgrown with vegetation. The DPW has assisted the school department and cut some of that back. I'm not sure, Councilor, if you've been over. I haven't had a chance to look at what they've done so far.
I didn't see too much done yet.
In the school department, there's a fence that's involved, so the school department needs to cut behind that fence to get rid of the vegetation control. DPW is fixing a catch basin that was sinking in over there. They're going to make that so that we talked about possibly widening that intersection out a little bit and widening out Monroe Street, which has kind of been an issue for a while because we have a single-family home down on Monroe Street, and I can't say this for sure, but looking at that roadway, I think that was probably just put in for a public safety access way years ago to get to the back of the school. We're now using it to exit people out of there.
Yeah.
So the roadway really isn't wide enough for two-way traffic. I spoke to the people that live in the home. They're very nice. He's never complained, but he said that sometimes when they come home, if people are coming out of the school, they're getting honked at and yelled at, they're going the wrong way. So we thought, encompassing all this in, the DPW may be able to widen that roadway out a little bit at some point, working with the school department. But that's kind of a long-term solution. Short-term, I don't think the yield sign will work, but we're going to work on the vegetation control at that corner. And I did tell Councilor Schultz we could put up some warning signs through the police department, just with a report from myself and Chief Martineau approving it, where, it wouldn't be a yield or a stop sign, just something warning people that, there's a blind corner or something along that line. So that would be my suggestion over there. I don't think the yield sign would solve the problem that we're having.
Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, we talked about putting a cautionary sign there because it is, when they come down Fairbanks, there's a lot of cars coming out of Monroe from the school. So, and it doesn't seem like, even though it's a preschool center now, it's a kindergarten, and it's not an elementary school anymore, there's still a lot of cars. Even while we were there were a lot of cars coming out of that street. And Sergeant Boudreau's idea about widening that street is an excellent one because, the school department's got an old fence there, an old chain link fence that it's probably going to fall down soon anyway, but it could be taken down and then, the street could be widened because it is getting a lot of use.
What do you want to do, or this is your petition, because what's before us is...
I think we should hold it for now and, see, like Sergeant Boudreau said, we need to look at the vegetation right now and get that cut away so they get a little bit of a sight line there. So I would be in favor of amending it that way and holding it for the present time.
Second.
Make a motion, we hold.
Second. I have a motion and second to hold 24322. All those in favor?
Aye.
Don't burn it, remember that.
Thank you. And last but not least, 24422, Councilor Derek Cruz on behalf of Tyrone and Sheila Tynes, great people. Residents of Clyde Street request that the city implement either no parking from here to corner or no parking signs at the corner of Hancock and Summer Street, an appropriate distance on both sides. Residents exiting Hancock Street cannot see past the row of cars parked there. It becomes a public safety concern for them. So, yes, indeed.
I'm actually going to make a motion to hold this after conversations earlier about our sign shortage, as well as a conversation with Sergeant Boudreau, and let's get a chance to go back to the residents and talk to them about it a little more. So I'll make a motion to hold this for now.
Second. I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those approved?
Aye.
Aye. Great. That will be held.
Make a
And
motion, we adjourn.
Second?
I have a motion and second to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.